So next, we have 8 theories of globalization. Marami pang ibang theories ng globalization, pero I ought to discuss just only 8 kasi ito yung pinaka-kilala at pinaka-well-recognized na theory ng globalization. First, the theory of liberalism. Liberalism is the process of globalization as market-led extension of modernization at the most elementary level. It is a result of natural human desires for economic welfare and political liberty. As such, transplanetary connectivity is derived from human drives to maximize material well-being and to exercise basic freedoms. These forces eventually interlink humanity across the. So according sa theory ng liberalism, nagkaroon daw ng globalization. It is because of the liberalism. Pag sinabi kasi nating liberalism, kalayaan. So yung mga tao, they aim for a more libertarian society kung saan hindi dapat mangialam ang gobyerno o ang pamahalaan sa kung paanong yung market ay kumikilos. We must remember that in the principle of laissez-faire by Adam Smith, the father of economics, he says that the government should not intervene with how the market moves. Hindi dapat daw pinakikialaman ng gobyerno kung paano kumikilos ang pamilihan. It must be the free hand of the market that should move. Yung invisible hand. Yung hindi nakikitang kamay daw ng pamilihan ang dapat kumilos para sumulong ang pamilihan. Ano yung invisible hand na yon? Yun yung demand and yung supply. Diba? Pag sinabi natin demand side, ito yung side ng buyer. Supply, ito naman yung side ng seller. So, kung nasa free trade or nasa free market sila, it is the interaction of the buyer and the seller which determines ano yung magiging galaw ng market, ano yung magiging takbo ng presyo ng mga produkto. So from there, nagkaroon because of ng paglawak ng market ng pamilihan na hindi na lang siya nagkakasya sa loob ng isang city or ng isang bansa, it transcends across borders. Lumabas na sila from the borders na hindi lang dapat sa loob tayo ng bansa magkaroon ng free market. Ng market na hindi dinidiktahan ng mga pamahalaan. As such, pwede tayong pumunta sa ibang bansa. Diba? Kung hindi pinakikialaman ng bansa ang pamilihan, it could move on itself. May interaction ng buyer at ng seller. Therefore, may libertarian aspect na, may liberty aspect na yung pamilihan. Kaya nagkunti-unti nagkaroon ng globalization because of the market-led extension of modernization. Next, such explanations come mostly from business studies, economics, international political economy, law, and politics. Liberalists stress the necessity of constructing institutional infrastructure to support globalization. All this has led to technical standardization, administrative harmonization, translation arrangement between languages, laws of contract, and guarantees of property right. So yung liberalist view in economics, international political economy, law, and politics states na dapat daw para masuportahan yung paglaganap ng globalization, una, meron dapat technical standardization. Pag sinabi nating technical standardization, ano ba yung standard? Technical standard na dapat sundin ng mga tao o ng mga bansa when it comes to particular field. For example, now that we are experiencing pandemic, diba, the WHO or the World Health Organization release protocols or standards that individuals should follow in order to mitigate the spread of COVID-19. So standard yun, hindi siya dapat suwayin ng lahat ng bansa. Kasi pag may isang bansa na hindi sumunod, definitely kakalat ang sakit. Kahit pa wala ng sakit dun sa ibang bansa, Kakalat siya because of the movement of the people. Administrative harmonization, dapat daw hindi magkakaaway ang mga bansa. Kaya nga merong United Nations that fix the dispute between nations. Translation arrangement between languages, nagkakaroon na ng katumbas yung mga salita natin from Filipino to English, or minsan nanghihiram tayo kung wala talaga siyang direktang katumbas. Laws of contract, dapat daw every business or transaction should have instrument or contract governed by instrument or contract. And guarantee to property rights. Pag sinabi natin property rights, real property, ibig sabihin ito yung mga tungkol sa lupa, dapat i-guarantee through the liberalist principle. Dapat gina-guarantee ng mga bansa yung pagkakaroon ng property rights to its citizens. The next theory is theory of political realism. The advocates of this theory are interested in the question of state power, yung kapangyarihan ng estado, ng pamahalaan ng gobyerno ng bansa. To pursue or in the pursuit of national interest and conflict between states. According to them, states are inherently acquisitive and self-serving and heading for an inevitable competition of power. Some of the scholars stand for a balance of power where any attempt of any state to achieve world dominance is countered by collective resistance from other states. So according sa political realism, may mga bansa na nangangarap, syempre maging dominant world power in history. Maraming bansa or maraming kaharian ang nangarap maging dominant world power. Mga early hegemony katulad ng Persian Empire, ng Chinese Empire, ng British Empire, ng Amerika ngayon sa kasalukuyan, ng Rome, even before. So, to achieve it, kailangan nila ng alliance. Kaya yung mga bansang to, nakikipag-allied sila sa mga ibang bansa. For example, US, it allied with Great Britain, France, Asian countries katulad ng Pilipinas, Australia, yung mga malalakas na bansa, Canada. Pero, hindi hinahayaan ng isang puwersa. Kumbaga, nagkakaroon siya ng kalaban eh. Sa panahon ngayon, ang kalaban ng US, when it comes to economy and politics, is Russia and China. So, sila yung nagbibigay ng balance of power. Para hindi maging dominant world power ang US, kailangan itong tapatan ng China or ng Russia. In return, ayaw naman ng US maging dominant world power ang socialist countries katulad ng China at saka ng Russia. Kaya ang ginagawa niya, tinatapatan niya din. Kaya nagkakaroon ngayon ng balance of power. Walang iisang bansa lang ang nagiging makapangyarihan. Next, another group suggests that a dominant state can bring stability to world order. The hegemon state, present in the US or the G7 or G8, comprises of Canada, Italy, Germany, Japan, US, UK, China, and Russia. Yung walong yun na bansang binanggit ko, comprise the G8. It maintains and defines international rules, an institution that both advance its own interest and at the same time contain conflict between other states. Globalization has also been explained as a strategy in the contest of power between several major states in contemporary world politics. So kung titingnan natin, kaya nga di ba naitatag ang United Nations, it is because to have, for the world or for the community of nations to have a single agency that will govern everyone. Though, kung titingnan natin ang structure ng United Nations, hindi siya pwedeng manghimasok sa local affairs ng isang bansa. For example, sa Pilipinas, as long as we have operational branches of the government such as executive, judicial, and legislative branch, hindi pwedeng manghimasok ang United Nations. Pero kapag may dispute na sa pagitan ng dalawang bansa, for example, sa West Philippine Sea, Philippines and China. Doon pwede manghimasok ang tawag dito ang United Nations. But the problem is, sinasabi ng UN, hindi siya party sa UNCLOS or sa United Nations Convention on the Laws of the Sea. So hindi daw valid yung petition natin sa UNCLOS, sa Permanent Court of Arbitration. Kasi nga, hindi naman daw party o hindi naman daw pumirma doon sa agreement ang China. Next theory. We have theory of Marxism or Marxism. Marxism is principally concerned with modes of production, social exploitation, through unjust distribution and social emancipation. Through the transcendence of capitalism, Marx himself anticipated the growth of globality that capital by its nature drives beyond every spatial barrier to conquer the whole earth for its market. According to Marxists, globalization happens because of transworld connectivity, enhances opportunity of profit-making, and surplus accumulation. So naniniwala si Marx na kaya nagkaroon ng globalization kasi because of capitalism. Remember si Karl Marx ay galit na galit sa capitalism. Ayaw niya ng capitalism. Gusto niya, it is the government who will control yung market. Walang free market. Walang negosyo ang pwedeng maging pag-aari ng mga individual. Lahat dapat pag-aari ng gobyerno. Actually, Marx believed that ang start talaga ng communism is from capitalism. So from capitalism, unti-unting magagalit yung mga tao kasi yung mga yung mga manggagawa, yung mga peasants, yung mga lower class sa lipunan, magagalit sila kasi they will feel they were unfair, ang haba ng oras ng pagtatrabaho, ang liit lang ng sweldo, hirap na hirap sila. After nun, they will rise and revolt against the government. Itatopple down nila yung capitalism hanggang sa magkakaroon ng tinatawag na socialism. Classless na, wala nang mayaman, walang mahirap. Lahat pantay-pantay. Pero may government pa din that will ensure wala nga lang presidente o walang iisang taong mag-govern. A group of people will govern that will ensure na lahat ng tao pantay-pantay, lahat ng negosyo pinatatakbo ng gobyerno, sila mag-i-ensure nun hanggang unti-unti mawala yung gobyerno at magkakaroon ng tinatawag na communism or classless society. Lahat ng tao nagkakasundo na sila na kahit wala silang gobyerno, basta ito yung batas, ito yung susundin namin, mabubuhay tayong lahat. Diba? That's classless society. Hindi na nga naman maaabuso ang lower class. Why? Kasi nga wala ng lower class. Lahat na ng tao pantay-pantay na. Pantay-pantay na ng kinikita ayon din sa kakayahan mo. Marxists reject both liberalist and political realist explanations of globalization. It is the outcome of historically specific impulses of capitalist development. Its legal and institutional infrastructure serve the logic of surplus accumulation of global scale. Liberal talk of freedom and democracy make up legitimating ideology for exploitative global capitalist class relations. So dito, masasabi natin na tawag dito na yung Marxist ayaw nila dun sa liberalist view na kaya mayroong globalization kasi may free market. Kasi kinakailangan na magkaroon ng isang global government. Sabi ng mga Marxist, hindi. Kailangan lahat ng tao pantay-pantay. Kasi ang nangyayari, kung merong free trade, kung merong global government, yung mga maliliit na bansa, yung mga maliliit na industry, sila yung nakakawawa. Tapos, ang ginagamit na way just to legitimize yung paghihirap ng mga mahihirap is democracy. Mahirap nga kayo pero may kalayaan naman kayo. Kung ano yung gusto nyong gawin, magagawa nyo. Nga lang, mahirap kayo. Sabi ni Marx, hindi na baling hindi ka ganun kalaya na isuko mo yung ibang karapatan mo sa gobyerno. or sa lipunan, provided na lahat ng tao pantay-pantay, hindi magkakaroon na unfair. Theory of Constructivism. Globalization has also arisen because of the way that people have mentally constructed the social world with particular symbols, language, images, and interpretation. It is the result of a particular forms of dynamics of consciousness, patterns or productions and governance are second-order structure that derive from deeper cultural and socio-psychological forces, such as accounts of globalization have come from the fields of anthropology, humanities, media of studies, and sociology. So, according sa mga constructivist, nagkaroon ng globalization kasi kinakailangan natin magkaroon ng global symbol. We construct social world based on particular symbols, languages, images, and interpretation. Kaya nga, di ba, anong tinatawag nating international language? English. It is a product of globalization. Nagkaroon ng globalization or nagkaroon ng English and vice versa because of English or because of globalization. Diba? Dahil sa globalization, lumaganap ang English. So, because of English naman, unti-unting natutunan ng mga tao na makipag-communicate with one another, thus giving way to globalization. Diba? Parang it is hand in hand. Ano pa? Technology. Diba? Pag sinabi mong Facebook or FB, automatic it's an app, a social networking app that can help you connect with people, socialize with people, even from miles apart or from miles farther. Ano pa? Diba? Pag sinabi mong YouTube, it is a video sharing app. Instagram, TikTok. Kumbaga, these are just apps, but it has symbol to us that brought about by globalization. Conversion and symbolic exchanges led people to construct ideas of the world, the rules for social interaction and ways of being and belonging in that world. Social geography is a mental experience as well as physical fact. They form in and out as well as us and they groups. So because of symbolic exchanges, parang nagkakaroon ngayon ng paggugrupo ng mga tao. So for example, kaming mga bansang ganito, or kami yung mga taong ganito, kami yung gumagawa nito. In kami, for example, K-pop fans. Because of the trend of the K-pop culture, yung iba, kahit hindi naman nila ganun kagusto before, nai-influensyahan sila. Diba? Ano pa? Some cultural aspect na pag nakita mo, gagaya ka kasi yun ang yun ang uso. Kasi nga, there is us and they. Kumbaga, us, kami to. Pag hindi ka kapareho sa amin, iba yung way of living mo, yung way of life mo, hindi ka in sa grupo namin. Next, the theory of post-modernism. Some other ideational perspective of globalization highlight the significance of structural power in the construction of identities, norms, and knowledge. They are grouped under the label of post-modernism. They too, as Michael Foucault, thus strive to understand society in terms of knowledge, power structures shape knowledge, certain knowledge structure support certain power hierarchies. Ibig sabihin, kaya daw nagkakaroon ng, according to the post-modernist theory, kaya daw nagkakaroon ng globalization, it is because of yung mga mas mayayamang bansa, mas mauunlad na bansa, they have the capability to understand how society works on itself. Postmodernism, like Marxism, helps to go beyond the relatively superficial accounts of liberalist and political realist theories and expose social conditions that have favored globalization. Obviously, postmodernism suffers from its own methodological idealism. All material forces through come under impact of ideas, cannot be reduced to modes of consciousness for a valid explanation interconnection between ideational and material forces is not enough. So pinakikita ng post-modernist theory yung tawag dito, yung mga social conditions that have favored globalization. Ano yun? Yun yung pagkakaroon ng matatawag nating global market, global government. Kaya daw nabubuo kaya daw nagkaroon ng globalization. It is because there is a need for a global market and a global government. Di ba sinasabi nga, there's no man is an island. Hindi kaya ng isang bansang mabuhay ng siya lang. Kaya nga nagkakaroon tayo ng tinatawag na tawag dito, yung ipagkalakalan or free trade with other countries. Kasi nga, hindi sa lahat ng pagkakataon, kaya ng isang bansa na mabuhay ng sarili niya lang. Ngayon, iniisip ng karamihan na North Korea live with itself, na sinasara ng pinto ng sinasara ng North Korea yung pinto niya from the outside world. Pero hindi natin alam, they welcome Chinese and Russian people kasi nga, sila yung theory of feminism. So, pag feminism, tungkol sa babae, puts emphasis on social construction of masculinity and femininity. All other theories have identified the dynamics behind the rise of transplanetary and supra-territorial connectivity and technology, states, capital, identity, and the like. So, dito mag-uumpisa daw na kinikilala muna ng mga tao ang identity nila. Now, we have masculinity, yung mga lalaki, and femininity, yung mga babae. Biological sex is held to mold the overall social order and shape significantly the course of history, presently, globality. Their main concern lies behind the status of women, particularly their structural subordination to men. Women have tended to be marginalized, silenced, and violated in global communication. So, aminin naman natin, kahit sa bansa natin medyo okay pa yun yung pagkakapantay ng babae at saka ng lalaki. Medyo pantay pa kasi given naman, we have 2 presidents na babae, Cory and Gloria. We have 2 vice presidents na babae, Gloria and Lenny. Diba? When you go to the Congress, meron tayong mga babae, congressman o congresswoman. Meron na nga rin tayong transgender. Pagdating naman sa Senate, ganun din, we have women senator. So, nababalansa sa bansa natin. Pero sa ibang bansa, hindi. For example, si Yusuf Malala of Afghanistan, isa siyang advocate ng pagkakaroon ng karapatan ng mga babaeng makapag-aral sa Afghanistan. Pero mariin yung tinututulan kasi nga, mostly in Muslim countries, ang tingin sa babae dapat nasa loob lang ng bahay. Hindi ka pwedeng lumabas, hindi ka pwedeng mag-aral. Pero si Yusuf Malala, ang kanyang paniniwala, hindi pantay dapat ang babae sa lalaki. Kahit Muslim siya. Dapat, kung nag-aaral ng lalaki, ang babae din. Kasi pareho naman sila. Mostly in Muslim country, in African country, iba pa rin yung pagtingin sa mga babae. So in modern countries naman, meron pa rin racial discrimination against women sa Amerika. Kaya nga nagkakaroon tinatawag na yung mga battered wife, mga binubugbog na babae, mga girlfriend pa lang, binubugbog. It is because of the belief that male is superior than female. Theory of Transformationalism. This theory has been expounded by David Held and his colleagues. Accordingly, the term globalization reflects increased interconnectedness in political and economic and cultural matters across the world, creating a shared social space. Given this interconnectedness, globalization may be defined as a process or a set of processes which embodies a transformation in the spatial organization of social relations and transactions expressed in transcontinental and interregional flows of networks of activities, interaction, and power. So sabi ng transformationalism, nag-umpisa sa maliit. connectivity ng small group ng person na hanggang unti-unti, lumawak, lumaki. They imply that the politics of globalization have been transformed, using their word from the definition of globalization, along all of these dimensions because of the emergence of a new system of political globalization. They define political globalization as the shifting reach of political power, authority, and forms of rule based on new organizational interests for transnational and multi-layer. Paano yan, di ba? Di ba, UN? Bakit nabuo ang UN? Hindi naman siya nabuo ng overnight lang. It is a concept of an American president by the person of Franklin Delano Roosevelt. So, di ba, from maliliit na mga bansa, maliliit na mga tribo, maliliit na mga city, nakakabuo tayo ng mas malalaki at mas complex na mga political entities such as nations, countries, and state. So, itong mga bansa na to, kinakailangan magkaroon ng global politics, ng political globalization, ng global government. Kasi, para mag-govern natin yung mga bansa ng pantay-pantay. Kasi kung hindi, iniisip ng mga transformationalist, it will lead into chaos. Kasi syempre, kung walang international organization or international government, a world state that will govern or that will regulate countries, therefore, kapag nag-away-away itong mga bansang to, walang mamamakita. Diba? Pero because of United Nations, we are bound to follow the rules, the international laws of the United Nations. Last one, number 8, the theory of eclecticism. Each one of the above 6 ideal type of social theories of globalization highlights certain forces that contribute to its growth. They put emphasis on technology and institution, building, national interest in interstate competition, capital accumulation and class struggle, identity and knowledge construction, rationalism and cultural imperialism, and masculinized and subordination of women. So, pinakikita lang nito yung mga naunang theory na pinag-aaralan natin. So, earlier, nationalism promoted territorialism, capitalism, and statism. Now, these plural identities are fading more and more globally. More globality. Hyper-capitalism and polycentrism, these identities have many international qualities visualized in global diasporas and other group affiliation based on age, class, gender, race, religious faith, and sexual orientations. Many of the forms of the supra-territorial solidarities are appearing through globalization. Paano yan? Yung mga bansa, normal na yon na magkampi-kampi sila eh. Or magkaroon tayo ng, yung lagi kong paulit-ulit na sinasabi, global government or global politics. Pero, because of other aspects, nagkakaroon ngayon ng supra-territorial solidarities. For example, yung mga Jews, yung mga Hudyo, di ba? Dati wala silang sarili nilang bansa. Sabi nga, Great Depression, diaspora, kalat-kalat sila. So because of the Zionist organization or yung Zionism, it aims na pagsamasamahin ng mga Hudyo sa iisang bansa, and that is Israel. Kaya ngayon nga sa kasalukuyan, yung mga Hudyo, they are now concentrated in Israel, although merong napupunta rin sa ibang bansa. Ano pa? The belief of one African nation. Yung mga African countries, nagkakaisa sila to promote African culture, African language, African cuisine, lahat ng tungkol sa Africa. Although, pag sinabi mong African culture, it is still a vast, diversified culture of many African countries. Iba-iba pa din, pero pag tinignan mo siya holistically, this is the African culture, this is the African nation. Ganun din sa US, sa Amerika, Latin American nations. Iba-iba ng bansa pero may iisang cultural heritage. Ano yun? Spanish heritage. Di ba yung mga bansa katulad ng Bolivia, Venezuela, Ecuador, Peru. These are all Spanish-speaking countries. Mga sinakop sila ng Spain noon. Ngayon nagkakaisa sila to become a Latin American nation. Nagkakampi-kampi sila. Ano pa? Ano yun natin? The LGBT is also an example. Paano? Even iba-iba ng lahi, pero pag ang mga LGBT nagsama-sama on a particular issue, lahat ng bansa makikita mo nagiging trend yung paglaban for LGBT rights. Nakaraan lang, Black Lives Matter. Although all lives matter naman talaga. Lahat ng buhay may halaga. Pero during that particular scenario of George Floyd, na-undermine, na isang tabi yung buhay na mga blacks. So yung mga blacks from Africa, from America, nagsama-sama sila through online petition, trending, hashtags, just to show their global presence or global force. Diba? Minsan nga kahit hindi ka blacks, all Black Lives Matter ka eh. Why? Kasi nga, you believe in that particular principle. Diba? Kahit iba-iba tayo ng religion or ng sexual orientation, pero ng iba't iba tayo ng lahi, pero we connect with those na kapareho natin. Kaya LGBT ka. Kahit ibang lahi, nakikunik ka kasi pareho kayo LGBT. You understand each other. Diba? Mga Kristiyano, kahit ibang lahi, we connect with them kasi iisa lang tayo na believe. And those are the 8 theories of globalization. Your task sheet number 1 are already in your module. Pass your task sheet number 1 and your or activity sheet number 1 and your pre-assessment activity on Moodle next week. So, just read na lang yung ibang hindi ko na-discuss doon sa inyong module and kung may question, you just PM me or i-chat ninyo sa group.